Welcome into Noon Dish. I'm Tommy Ashley. That's Don Callahan, sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Getting my setup straight here. Don, I don't know if you can hear it. I've got somebody blowing leaves out across the street. So it's pretty loud to me. I don't know if it's loud for everybody else.
I,
There's nobody in here yet this morning except the regular Sean Crawley. And it's that time of year, man. Everybody's got a lot going on, sort of a last minute decision to do a noon dish. What's going on, Don?
not much, you know, same old, same
I
old.
mean, you wanted what's the same all? And you're like, I'll tell you what, let me vent for a second while
Sure.
people filter
All
in.
right.
I have no trees in my front yard.
No trees, but
I
you have
have had
you have
to
leaves.
I've had to rake my front yard about once every other day
Mm,
because the way the wind blows, the neighbor's leaves blow in my yard.
mm.
So question. Should I get them to blow their own leaves out of my yard, or should I just be quiet and get the exercise?
I I am not a big leaf blower person. I just leave it. I don't mess with it. We'll blow the grass after we mow the lawn, but like to me, I think it looks natural. Well, it is natural, and it looks fall when you
But you
see the
don't have any trees in your yard.
I don't have any big trees, but we have trees. Nothing that gets I don't know. I don't think it looks so that bad, you know.
Yeah.
So, but funny story for me is you're during one of the times where we got a new leaf blower and my son decided to blow the grass all on across the street neighbor who is this older curmudgeon lady. We have a very good relationship with her, but she's the type that immediately will come out and like rip his behind.
Fussing for blowing your grass clippings into her
Yes.
yard.
Yeah. So I thought that was funny, and I tried to explain, no, that's not that's what I thought you were gonna say was that you have no leaves, but your neighbors come and blow it into your lawn.
Yeah,
So,
that will get me cranked up and going when I see that going on. But no, I enjoy doing it. It's the way. And somebody said leave them in the yard. I get it. I'm all for the natural. But the problem is I have a dog, and if you leave the leaves in the yard, and the dog does his business,
oh
then you
yeah.
don't see it. So I've already had three strikes at having to clean that up off of shoes
Mm-mm-mm.
in the last couple of weeks. Drives me nuts. Anyway, noon dish. We're calling it flip season. We did a show last Wednesday, I think last Wednesday, I guess the 5th.
Mhm.
Right before we went on, North Carolina lost a commitment.
Mhm.
Later that night, North Carolina lost a commitment. And since we recorded, North Carolina's lost two more commitments. Don, we talked about the size of the class was upwards of 40, probably going to increase. Is there a common theme on these guys decommitting from North Carolina?
No, I don't think there's a common thing. I think there's a bunch of different reasons. You know, you have Mason Wilhelm, whose father played at Ohio State, and even if you disregard that completely, he's an Ohio kid who all of a sudden gets a scholarship offer from Ohio State. So that makes sense for him to make the flip. I talked to him a little bit. Details from Amazon. Sorry. Nice and clean adult fluff. That I accidentally hit my Alexa. Um,
I
we're,
mean,
we're
just a high
having
society. There's a lot going on with Don
yeah,
Callahan.
we're complaining about leaves in our yard and Alexa's going off. Anyway, so talk to Mason. It made complete sense for him. Then you also had Aiden Woods, who flipped to West Virginia. He's from Virginia, but he's from that northwest area, the mountain area, which is for all intents and purposes really West Virginia, even though it's technically Virginia. So that made a whole lot of sense. Plus, West Virginia is kind of in the same boat as North Carolina, to where they're kind of scouring, the talent everywhere and trying to add to their class and improve their roster bit by bit. So I mean, they're actually messing with a couple of North Carolina's commitments, and that's the only one so far that has flipped to the Mountaineers. But yeah, I mean, some of it, I've talked to some other ones who haven't flipped anywhere, and some of it is, unhappiness. I don't want to get into too much detail because a lot of those conversations were off the record, but they're not part of the class now, and North Carolina is moving forward and trying to flip some other players, add some other players that they're recruiting. Had a bunch of official visitors this past weekend. So, but before we go too deep into all that, because I know that's what we're going to talk a lot about, we're going to count on Preston to hopefully come up with the top 5 for us. We need a top 5 for this episode. And then also, I need to give the chat MVP out to Vance McKnight, who I can't say that I've seen that screen name before, but he came up big when we were talking about California recruits. And in my head, I was trying to remember Herman Davidson, and I just couldn't. And he was the one who came up with the name before anybody else. And it's funny, when I was at the game on Saturday, bumped into a couple people, and someone was telling me that they were yelling at their radio when they were listening to the podcast, Herman Davidson. And also they remembered, what was the other one? Von Telemack, who ended up at Miami. So, who was, I guess, Herman's teammate that North Carolina was also heavily pursuing, who was a national recruit.
I don't know. Maybe I just blacked out during that time. I just don't remember those guys. And no disrespect, I just don't remember. Right? There's so many names pinging around, and those were not two of them. Talking with Don Callahan here on the Noon Dish. As I mentioned, shout out to Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com. There's a QR code on your screen if you're watching it on your TV or however you consume it. You can click on the QR code. It takes you to the Inside Carolina on 3 sign up. Get your premium subscription. Get Don Callahan in full and in the flesh. Don Callahan constantly kicking out scoops and other intel on the Tar Pit Premium message board, and that's really the only place you can rely on that it is going to be solid info for your North Carolina recruiting fix on the football side. Don, Don, you mentioned those guys, West Virginia, Ohio State. I mean, here's what I hear. Here's a couple things, and I want you to either refute them or confirm them.
Okay.
Oh, they're just getting rid of lesser players. They're clearing space for lesser players, or getting rid of lesser players and clearing space for some big time recruits coming in for all these schools that have lost their coaching, or um, the season hadn't gone well, so recruits are jumping ship. I mean, which of those two hold any weight, if either at all, when you're talking about flips? And then I have another point about flips after you finish.
So I think, let me throw out a third potential option, is just that maybe North Carolina isn't doing a great job in some instances with kind of quote unquote babysitting their commits. And I think that's kind of part of it a little bit. If you're a recruit and another school is hitting you up a lot more frequently than the school you're committed to is, then you might feel a certain way. I mean, how many of these guys have North Carolina really been super upset on losing? Probably not many of them. But there's a lot of different ideas we have out here that just kind of collide into each other. One is that Lombardi has said multiple times he wants to sign a class of 40 plus. Basically wants to sign 2 classes in one. Now, you don't do that by booting guys out. And especially and even if you're saying, okay, I'm going to boot this player out and we're going to add this player when player B has not even yet committed yet. You know what I mean? Now, if North Carolina was adding a bunch of tight ends and then you started seeing guys getting bumped out, that would make sense to me. But you're, what is that saying? 2 birds in the hand, or
Bird in the
one
hand's
hit,
worth
bird in
2
the
in the
hand,
bush.
yeah, sort of thing. Is that sort of mentality? I don't. If your goal is to get to 40 and you don't have your replacements in place, then I don't think that works all that well. But either way, there's been a lot of things kind of going on. I don't just to kind of answer your original question, I don't think it's really related to the season. In my conversations with the commits, all of them have been very defensive. It's probably not a great term, but just protective of just how the season's going and the coaching staff and what they're building, and understanding that it was going to be a process, understanding all of that stuff. And we've gone into this multiple times in prior podcasts, in that for a lot of these commits, they've been committed for several months. This is their school. You know what I mean? This is no longer, a lot of instances, no longer like just a school they're looking at. This is their school. And so, as anybody who's had a school knows, you get protective of it. And so I think you want to, you're fine with what's going on. You're understanding of what's going on. And a lot of these players, they know losses happen, and they know bad seasons happen, and they understand that Belichick came in and was kind of starting all over, and they've been cool with it. So I don't think that how the season's been going has had any sort of impact on why some of these players have decommitted or flipped from North Carolina.
Yeah, when you look at it, the class is still loaded. Obviously, the most recent commitment was Forkpo. We talked about him last week.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got a lot of guys, as you mentioned. And folks, if you want to look at the commitment list, go to the Tar Pit Premium message board, look at the Ask Don/recruiting board thread, and it's right there in front of you. And you can get them, you can organize them, all sorts of ways to check out that information that Don's talking about. Don, let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned official visits. And last week they played Stanford. We talked about how that wasn't a great week for official visits, but it turned out to be a beautiful day in Chapel Hill for sure, and that always helps. But what'd you glean from that official visit weekend against the Stanford Cardinal? Game could have been better, but it was a win. And like I said, the weather was absolutely perfect.
The weather was great. Before we get to that, Sam Rogers has a great, I think, point. You see that?
Yeah, you talking about babysitting that many
Yeah, hard
recruits?
to babysit this many recruits. Problem is they are having to completely flip the roster over again for the second year in a row. But the part of hard to babysit this many recruits is true. That's one of the many negatives, and people know I have not been a huge fan of the idea of taking two classes in one cycle. And this is one of the many reasons I can kind of point to of why, that's not a great idea. But to answer your question, the funny thing was from an official visitor standpoint, there was there was two official visitors who actually attended the game. Only one of them arrived in time to see the pregame activities, such as the Old Well Walk, and have I guess it would be lunch with the coaches, and get the brief little facility tour, and then watching. And that was a commit, JB Shabazz. We have an update with him that we posted on Tuesday. But the other one was David Davis, another DB who is committed to Penn State, officially visiting. He got there just before kickoff, so he was able to watch the entire game. And then we had an update on him earlier in the week. Also, Amari Towns is a Purdue commit, tight end. He, because of the transportation issues with the airports and all of that, he actually arrived, I think it was shortly after or midway through the third quarter. So he was able to see the the third quarter, I guess, was probably the best part for North Carolina. So he saw about half of that and saw the win. So, but I mean, it was all positive stuff from the recruits. I just actually ran a story on Jonah Rodriguez, a JUCO offensive lineman from California, who never was planning on being there Saturday, was planning on arriving on Sunday. But again, another airport issue, which had him not even arriving until 2 a.m. on Monday morning. So basically his official visit was just Monday. We have an update that I posted Wednesday morning on him. But everything seems very positive. No sort of, I don't think we're in any sort of like impending sort of commitments, but I think North Carolina made a really good case with Towns, who is now kind of going back and forth between Purdue and North Carolina. You had David Davis, who I think he remains committed to Penn State, and I think that's pretty significant for kids when they haven't officially decommitted. Even though they're still visiting other schools, it kind of just speaks to their mindset that they are definitely going to give their former school, or I guess current committed school, an opportunity depending on what they do with the head coaching stuff. But really the calendar just doesn't do these schools any sort of favors, because December 3rd is the first day of the early signing period. And if you are, whether you're Florida, Penn State, or whoever, if you're trying to hire a coach who is currently a head coach or maybe even a coordinator somewhere, I mean, you're asking them to leave their team in the middle of the season. And in some of these instances, some of the names being thrown around, they're teams that are potentially playoff bound. So it's really, really rough situation for these programs.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that when you said he's still committed to Penn State, and this is not a specific question for him, but for those guys you mentioned. I mean, these teams that don't have coaches, and the signing day is coming up. The thing, let me ask you about signing day. Do you don't even really have to sign anymore, do you? It's not like the old days. You just kind of sign your NIL package or your whatever they're calling it now.
Well, so you sign, I guess, your NIL. You also sign your revenue share. I mean, I don't even actually, the NIL stuff might not even be a part of that, even though it does get signed. And then you sign your scholarship papers.
There you go. Scholarship papers is where I was looking for, not the letter of intent anymore.
Yeah. So ultimately, it really doesn't matter, because you can sign your scholarship papers and then enter the transfer portal. So, and we saw that with Julian Sayin, who signed and actually was taking classes at Alabama, and then once Nick Saban retired, he entered the transfer portal and never actually practiced with the Crimson Tide, and now is having a great season for Ohio State. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it all doesn't matter. From my understanding, the scholarship papers are the most binding, if you can even call it that, because the rev share stuff is kind of tied to that. You can sign your rev share papers, but it's contingent on you actually enrolling. So obviously it kind of falls through if you don't enroll. But those are interesting because those can start to be actually sent out on November 15th, but they can't be signed until the December 3rd, I believe. But I think what we're going to see is that most schools are not going to send out those rev share documents until closer to December 3rd, because they're for fear of kids just kind of shopping around and saying, "Hey, this is what they're offering me." Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's kind of a mess, and it's I had a conversation with someone who's involved with all of that to try to get a better understanding, and I felt like I left with more questions and answers, to be honest.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you said shopping around. Guys are doing that now, right? Across everywhere.
Yeah, but I think
Don Callahan's going to pay me $5 to be on his podcast, but somebody else said they'd pay me 10.
Yeah.
What do you say, Don? Are you going to pay me 11? I mean, that's going on now.
Yeah. Hey, so Preston has a top 5. Speaking of what you just mentioned, top 5 IC staff members.
Yeah, you know who's on the list on that one.
We
can't do that because we would give a lot of what's the information, insider information that we can't give up at Inside Carolina.
Okay.
You know, we could talk about the public figures, but there's so many that stay out of the limelight that do so much work. And let's be fair, they're more important than all of us.
Yeah, this is true. This is
So,
true.
Preston, you need to get with it. I mean, Thanksgiving foods, we'll probably have a show again before Thanksgiving, so we can do that. Comedians, I have to be in a mood for comedians, and a lot of these ones that come across as popular and all that, I just think it's silly. Top five podcasts, well, that's easy. Inside Carolina.
We well, we should do top 5 regular podcasts. We can even and exclude Inside Carolina.
I can't name any. I used to listen to a bunch.
Really? So you don't
I
do it
would
anymore?
walk and listen. I don't because I'm look, sorry folks. Y'all see my face on these things every single day. And when you talk about it all the time, every day, you kind of don't want to hear about it anymore. It's kind of like in my past life, I didn't want to watch the news. I didn't want to watch all the crime shows because I lived it every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can understand that.
I will say this, and we can do top five podcasts, but I'll probably have to defer.
All right, let's do top 5 podcasts, a regular podcast that's, similar or similar to ours where it's regular but yeah, I guess we'll keep
Yeah.
it sports themed.
No, we don't have to keep it sports
All right,
themed.
doesn't have to be sports
I
themed.
don't want people to dig into the political aspect of it. You can, if it's a political show you listen to, you can list it. But top five podcasts that you
Okay.
listen to,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and tell you. I'm currently
So
paying attention to the Welcome to Dairy podcast that they do after every week of the Welcome to Dairy show. Those are my type podcasts.
all
There, the
right,
sort of
so
review shows.
I have a question. So I understand where you're coming from. I had a friend who was a defense attorney and said that he cannot watch like nonfiction or anything like that. Like he needs kind of almost escape from reality. So it was a big sort of like, the certain movies he liked and all that was, you know, getting away from life sort of thing. But so you go on these long walks. What do you listen to? Is it music or is it
Not anymore. I have the puppy, so I'm usually telling her to walk, stop pulling, leave it alone, and things like that. I don't listen to as much, but I used to listen. I would rotate through listening to music and listening to shows or whatever, audiobooks and things like that. Now, though, I just kind of walk in peace and talk to her and
okay?
hear nature and all. I mean, it
Hey,
sounds
no,
ridiculous.
now the past, well, I try to do, so my walk typically is 6 a.m. Try to do it yesterday, and because I bring the baby with me, and it was just too cold, and so I have them bundled up, and I'm like, all right, is this maybe too cold?
Yeah.
So we didn't go this morning, but when I first get out there, usually now I'm a big podcast listener, but I've noticed that lately, like for the first, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, especially at 6 a.m., there's like no one out there. It is so peaceful, and
Yeah.
it just does kind of help kind of set my day.
Yeah.
Um,
So top five podcasts that you listen to. You can include Inside Carolina if you want, but you don't have to. But top five podcasts, maybe give me some ideas. And I will say this, of all the crime shows that were out there,
mhm.
CSI was more detrimental to the criminal justice system in real life than any show out there. And I used to watch it, but it was devastating to the criminal justice system and how it worked. And The Wire, obviously not a regular series, but a streaming series, is the most realistic of all of the shows, if you ask law enforcement.
Yeah, having grown up in Philadelphia, I always felt like The Wire was the. And when I say I grew up in Philadelphia, I grew up in Philadelphia, Northeast Frankfurt neighborhood. So the Wire always felt the most real to me from what I've seen, as far as just understanding just certain jobs within a community. Let's say that.
Yeah, hey, everybody's got a job. As long
Yeah.
as everybody's working, everybody's doing well. We've gotten kind of a far afield, but drop your podcast suggestions or thoughts in the chat. If you're watching this later or listening to this later, I'd love to see them on the show thread. maybe give me some new ideas. Like I said, I've watched the ones I listen to the most are the reviews of the different shows, whether it's the Last of Us podcast or Game of Thrones podcast or the Dairy Welcome to Dairy podcast have been the ones of my go-tos. Let's get back to
All right.
football. We're talking Noon Dish with Don Callahan. It's about 12:30 on Wednesday the 12th. Thank everybody for joining us in. You mentioned earlier official visits. Obviously, Carolina's last home game is Duke. That is not this Saturday, but next. What's on the horizon for official visits as we get closer to that December 3rd signing period?
Yeah, so that's shaping up to be a big weekend. Jordan Avenger, who was committed to Arkansas, visit North Carolina, picked up a scholarship offer, and then decommitted from Arkansas. He took an official visit to West Virginia this past weekend. So North Carolina will close out his official visit, and he's basically down to UNC and West Virginia, and plans on signing during the early signing period. There's also Assad Chapman, who's a JUCO corner from California. He's starting to kind of blow up, and I think this morning picked up Oregon. There were some other new offers. So I'll be curious to see if he actually still makes it to North Carolina, just because of how much he's kind of blowing up a little bit. Another JUCO offensive lineman, TJ Taylor, he's scheduled to officially visit North Carolina that weekend. He's another one who maybe not to the extent as Chapman, but Taylor's starting to add some new offers to the point where he is going to come out with like a top schools list sort of thing. So we'll see where that goes. And then Dream Rashad, Purdue tight end commit. And you heard that right. Amari Towns, also a Purdue tight end commit. So, and they don't know each other very well. Dream is from Beaufort High School in Georgia. If you follow recruiting, you're well familiar with Beaufort High School, whereas Towns is from Alabama. And so they're going to be deciding on what they do with their recruitment completely separate from one another. But he's coming that weekend. Also, there's always the potential for additional guys to be added. There was a Penn State kid. What was his name? Sorry, I know this is terrible radio. Amari Polidor, another DB committed to Penn State, who there's a report out from those who cover Penn State for On3 Network that said that he was planning on coming officially visiting North Carolina this weekend, arriving sometime after UNC returns from Winston-Salem. I haven't been able to get that confirmed from my sources, but that's always a possibility. And then also we actually have two midweek official visitors next week. One is an interesting story. I don't know if you've seen this. The Nathaniel Salmon he played basketball in Australia. He's from New Zealand. Have you seen this story at all or read it?
I haven't read it. I'll be honest, I haven't read it yet. But tell us.
All right. So basically, tried the pro basketball route in Australia. That even if he was really good in Australia, he probably wasn't going to make a whole lot of money anyway. But it didn't really work for him. Somewhere along the lines, he was contacted to try this international, I don't know if you want to call it 10-week camp at IMG Academy. Went there, and from that received, and I'm probably getting a little bit of this this story incorrect, but I can't remember who it is now from On3 who actually wrote the story. And does a really good job of kind of laying out the timeline. So bear with me. Some of this stuff
It's
could be
Gorney. It's Adam Gorney that wrote the
Adam
story.
Gorney. Okay, yes. So check out Adam Gorney's story. But anyway, so from that, he is invited to the San Diego wait, are they the Chargers? San Diego Chargers now, or were they lost? I'm getting confused now.
Don. It's the LA Chargers, man.
LA Chargers. I'm sorry. I still call the Redskins the Redskins, all right?
Okay.
And the Guardians, the Indians. Anyway, I know.
Take a stand. Make a stand.
I'm going to get a lot of hate mail now for that.
Right.
But anyway, goes to the tryout, doesn't make the team, even though NFL teams are allotted a special spot in their practice squad for international players, doesn't qualify for that, goes back home. And then somebody reached out to him and said, hey, have you tried the college route? And so he contacted the NCAA, went through the clearinghouse, and they told him he has 4 years of eligibility. I guess five years to play for eligibility. And so once that happened, I think Utah was the first school to offer him a scholarship, and a couple other schools have. You know, this is a guy who's never played in a game. He's only been in camps. I don't know exactly how old he is, but looks like he's in his mid-20s. And yeah, so it's a really interesting story. I've been texting with him, but it was funny. This must be a term that is from that area, where he said thanks heaps, and I was like, okay,
Thanks a lot, man.
yeah. So I've never heard thanks heaps, but so yeah.
He plays. Let me
Sure.
try to figure this out.
Sure.
He plays basketball in New Zealand. He's a
Yes.
pro basketball player. He ends up going to the Chargers, trying to make the NFL Chargers
Well, he goes to a 10-week
a
program in
mini
IMG
camp.
first. Yeah.
Okay, so he goes there, and then he goes Chargers, and now the NCAA has cleared him to participate in college football and with 4 years of eligibility.
Yes.
Make it make sense. But if it works out for
So,
the young man, that's all that matters.
all right. So you no longer have to worry about any sort of money that he's received. But I think even under prior rules, the money, I don't know, would have mattered because it wasn't. I guess it would still matter because,
Two different sports.
well, yeah, that's why I was thinking two different sports. But I think he couldn't have received money for basketball still, I think. But anyway, now it doesn't matter now. You know, he could receive money for a different sport, I guess. And he is, as I understand it, your eligibility clocks once you enroll in a college. And if you've never enrolled in a college, then your eligibility clock has not started yet.
Wild. It's
Yeah.
wild. On the basketball side, you've got pro guys from overseas playing college basketball. Um, you've got G League guys telling you, yeah, he showed up in the wrong town.
Yeah.
Preston's on a roll, and he threw out a bone to your buddy on the podcast list there, but
That's
we'll
your
get those in a
buddy.
second. Let me ask you a question here, Brandon in the chat. Would you grade Burgess over Baker at the same stage?
No.
I wouldn't
And
either.
this is not a shot at Burgess at all. Keep in mind, we did a really good job of I think we made it into a 2-part series earlier this season with the help of his father kind of laying out just Burgess's background. Burgess actually grew up as a running back, basically. He didn't really start to begin to play quarterback until I think it was his 8th grade year. And then he split time with, I'm going to forget his name now. Oh, man. Actually, he signed with North Carolina, played for North Carolina for a year, and then ended up transferring. He was originally committed to ECU. Let's see who, chat MVP up for grabs right here. If you can help me. Committed to ECU, flipped to North Carolina, spent at least a season at North Carolina, and then I believe he ended up transferring back to ECU or transferring to ECU. Defensive back. He played quarterback at Whitfield Academy during his senior year. During that senior year, Burgess was a freshman, and they split time at quarterback. And then Burgess decides to transfer to Grayson with the understanding that he's not going to play his sophomore year because they had older quarterbacks. And so he didn't play his entire sophomore season, played his junior season, led him to a state championship, which obviously is massive, and now has missed almost his entire senior season because he tore his ACL. So you're talking about a kid who's only played, I guess you could say, a year and a half of high school football at quarterback, compared to Baker, who's played multiple seasons. So he overall, he's a lot more raw at the same stage. And I'm not knocking Travis at all. I think Travis has a very high ceiling. He has natural athleticism. He's more mobile than Baker is. Running is more part of his game than it is a part of Baker's game. Not tied. Aiden Duncanson, very good. Aiden Duncanson. So just to kind of recap real quick, Aiden Duncanson was the quarterback at Whitfield Academy his senior year, and he actually shared the quarterbacking duties with Travis. So Travis actually is very close with Caleb Lavalley, who was also on that team, who played for North Carolina also, and Aiden Duncanson. Ty Adams was, Ty Adams is South Georgia. I'm forgetting the name of the school now, but yeah.
You
So
are the chat is carrying. So Eric Miller,
I
you might
am.
have just gotten yourself a chat MVP there
He
from
might.
Don
Yep.
Callahan.
Yep.
Make a note. Make a note. Make a
Yep.
note.
Yep. We'll write it down right now. Eric Miller.
Don does take notes, and he has receipts. Talking with Don Callahan on the noon dish. Do this QR code on your screen. Sign up for Inside Carolina's premium subscriptions if you haven't. If you're listening to this and you haven't, go to InsideCarolina.com and sign up for Inside Carolina's premium services. You get Don Callahan on the football side and all the breakdowns of film and all that. And then you get the recruiting side of basketball as well with Sherelle McMillan and the gang. What else, Don, on the recruiting side? We sort of talked about it being flipmas. I know that people tend to get in a tizzy when a player on their school's commitment list flips to another school, but that's part of it because Carolina has certainly benefited from that, and will continue to benefit from that. I think it's just the nature of the beast. Anything left on the recruiting side of it? Don't know if we're going to make an hour today.
Um, yeah, I just want to emphasize, I'm not saying Travis Burgess is bad. I think he's very good, has a lot of raw tools, just to be clear. And other thing to mention is that he's not going to be a full go for the spring. So that's going to put him at a huge disadvantage heading into next season too. But
Yeah, I mean, it was a question about at this point, at the same
yeah,
stage in
yeah.
their careers, and to your point, Bryce Baker was a lifelong quarterback or close to it, and Burgess is a guy that has moved to quarterback later in his career, his high school career, or his youth football career, and he's also hurt,
Yeah.
and so I mean, it's all part of
Yeah,
the game and all part
absolutely.
of it.
Still a
You,
great prospect, and I expect him to have a great college career.
absolutely, it's got a ways to go before it gets here, but we'll see how it shakes out. Anything left on the recruiting side? You mentioned all the official visits coming up. Obviously, Carolina's at Wake Forest this week, 4:30 on I think it's on the CW, and it should
Hmm.
be fun. Do you ever go to away games?
I have, but I don't. um, Back when I was helping with the coverage, I did, but that's been a very, very, very long time.
Well, I'll
So,
be in Winston-Salem this week in the
okay.
Pepsi lot before the game, and
Okay.
hopefully having a nice time there at Wake. I always like going to the local schools, and Wake Forest is one of them. We'll go to Raleigh Thanksgiving, Saturday after Thanksgiving, and do that as well.
Hmm. What
And
has your experiences been in Raleigh?
never had a problem.
Really? Okay.
Literally, have never had a problem. The only
Okay.
time I've ever been cussed in Raleigh was by a Carolina fan,
Hmm.
and that story stays off air.
Okay.
Um, the only time I've ever been cussed by a state fan was so my friends are big time state people, so we would alternate. They would go with us, we'd go to them, and they sit in the nice seats and very good seats in Carter Finley. And you know how you have the pass outs, you can go out and drink or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Carolina, it was a bunting year. Carolina was playing, and of course, State was favored. And I think they had Mario Williams and the other defensive end. And I think that's the game Barrington Edwards went off for Carolina, running back. And So I'm walking out. So I come back in. Everybody else goes and drink, pass out. I come back in because I want to watch the game. And I'm walking down to my seats, which are close, and some lady let me have it. It was
Really?
so funny. And right when she's going off on me, I think Barrington Edwards breaks a long run, and I just turn around and pointed at the field.
Yeah.
And but those are the only two instances that I've ever had an issue at state. I find that you catch what you give. If
Yeah.
you
No,
go,
you're right about that. Yeah.
if you go to a place with an attitude and flash it, then you're probably going to get it back. And I will say this: Wake Forest, especially the student section, they give it as bad as anybody. They dislike North Carolina just about as anybody, as much as anybody. So that's always an interesting trip. I would be more on edge at Wake than I would in Raleigh, but that's just me.
Yeah. I just, because I had this conversation with your good friend Ross, because a lot of Wake Forest fans hate him, and I didn't even know Wake Forest fans existed. And I lived, it was like less than a year, but I lived right outside of Winston-Salem, very, very, very. It was like north of Winston-Salem, so it was very, very close to Wake Forest. And it was actually the year that they played. I think that they played for the ACC championship. I think, or maybe I'm just misremembering, but yeah. So yeah, I couldn't. I have I know plenty of people in my neighborhood are NC State fans, but I could not tell you about a Wake Forest fan at all.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I grew up with a
but
lot
let
of
me
important people
before
that did
we
Wake.
go on to the top five, there were two other names I wanted to bring up that I didn't get a chance to bring up. Carson Baker, Florida running back, 4-star kid. He for a while there, I think was he's one of those ones I mentioned earlier. Still technically committed to Florida. Kind of didn't want to get into the whole visiting other school ordeal, and slowly kind of end up doing that. And that included now scheduling an official visit to North Carolina for that November 22nd weekend. Also, I have him for some reason I have him arriving on the 21st on my notes. And then also Terry Wiggins, linebacker, 4-star linebacker, committed to Penn State. He's doing a midweek because I believe he has an official visit scheduled with Colorado for that final weekend, that North Carolina or North Carolina's final home game. So so definitely a lot of stuff going on with official visitors from North Carolina, and we're going to do our best to keep you as up to date as possible with those visitors. Some are easier than others to get information on. Very lucky this past weekend. I believe I spoke to everyone who officially visited North Carolina this past weekend, but that's not
Doing
usually
the
the
work.
case.
That's why
Yeah.
folks need to be on Inside Carolina premium stuff.
Yeah.
Steve Blakely in the chat says, "What do you hear about linebacker Fleming? Does that name ring a bell?
Fleming. I need
Last
um
name Fleming. I would hope
I'm
his
going
first name's not linebacker."
yeah. I don't think I need more specifics than that.
There you
Uh,
go. Then that answers that question, Steve. Let's go into the top five. Top five podcasts that you listen to. Sean Crawley, you were first in the chat, so I'm gonna give you the first up. Anything I See, Tar Heel Huddle, Mafia Stories podcast about real life, Phillies Show podcast. That's probably you and Don watch that one together, listen to that one together, and ones that cover TV and movie history. That's pretty cool. Preston, here we go. Preston goes big hitters only. Peek around the corner. I See Game Plan. Appreciate the shout out. Tar Heel Huddle. And Noon Dish, of course. Look, the man is, he knows where the bread is buttered.
but didn't we say no Inside Carolina podcast?
Hey, I'm not gonna hate.
Preston doesn't listen.
I'm not gonna hate. Sam Rogers, Southeastern 16, Jones and Adam on the Carolina Insider, Brent Hubbs, Volquest, Chip Patterson in Cover 3, and IC is number one. See, these folks know. They know the deal. They play to the audience, and I like that. What you got, Don? What do you
All
listen
right.
to?
So I just actually pulled up my phone to look at what I have in there. So I like Cover 3. I know that's I guess kind of our former place. I think they do a good job. I know people give Chip Patterson a hard time because he's a graduated from UNC fan, but he's one of those UNC fans that I would say is realistic. If anything, maybe does kind of lean towards the we're always going to lose sort of mentality. But as a Philly fan, I'm used to that. So cover 3 I have. Big Bets on Campus is one I really like. It's more, well, it's definitely gambling centric, but I think they do a good job of, it's not just purely gambling and numbers. It's more, I don't know, towards the narrative of college football, which I like. Let's see. I also have, let's see. I'm trying to look through here.
It's great work. Great radio.
Yeah. Bet the Process, another betting podcast I listen to pretty frequently. Risky Business, kind of betting, kind of topical. And then I don't have it on here, but I think because they went premium and I stopped listening to it. But Serial is really good for a lot of different things, a lot of true crime stuff. But there's also some stuff that you would never listen. There was just one season, and I don't know if I can say this word, but I'm going to try it.
Don't cuss on here.
It was called Shitsville.
Oh, okay. That's a town.
Well, kind of. So if I give you the background of it, you'll tell me that sounds boring. I'm not going to listen to it. But if you just put it on and listen, it is a great. It was. I loved it. I thought it was great. And what I found, and this is not for this top 5 because we're talking about regular podcasts, but I do get into the true crime stuff and the storytelling stuff. And I have found it's almost like a book. Like if you have a good writer, they can make any sort of topic be great in a book. With a good, I guess, podcaster, if you get a good podcaster, they can make a podcast about nothing sound awesome, and that's what kind of I think Serial does. No, I don't consider us this type of
every Wednesday at noon. Every Wednesday at noon. I know exactly what you're talking about. Eric Miller says, I see shows, Football Scoop, Cover 3, Audible, Logan Zone. Here you go. I said I don't listen, and I don't listen, but I'll show the ones I have saved in my
okay
shows you follow. American History Tellers, if I want to get that way. I've got Carolina Insider. I've got Cover 3 on there. I used to listen in daily. ESPN Daily. I don't know if that's still going, but that's a interesting. Hark the Pod, which is Carolina folks, Carolina students that do that stuff. Last of Us, when that was on, of course, Inside Carolina. Josh Pates, Key Battles of American History is pretty solid. On Base with Mookie Betts. That's a good one in the off season. And I had One Shining Pod, but it's not a thing anymore. And then, of course, the Welcome to Derry weekly while that show's going on.
So I have started to warm up a little bit to Josh Pate. I haven't listened in a few weeks, but I started for whatever reason to listen to it a little bit. I mean, I don't like the SEC Homer guys, and I kind of feel like he's a little bit like that. I don't know. So
I've got a couple more. I got Pivot. I've got Run Your Race, which is Penson's. I listen to those. Depends on the guest. Sunday Sit Down with Willie Geist. He usually has some good interviews. I got Bobby Bones. Steam Room. That would be my favorite.
What? I think I've heard of that. What is that about?
Ernie Johnson, Charles Barkley.
Oh, okay. All right.
It is unbelievable. They obviously not doing it this year or haven't done it this year. I've got Staples is on here, Unconquered. And then Vision of a Champion, which is Anson Dorrance. It was a series a while back. And then that's about it. And then I'll go through and I'll search, like, say there's an interview somebody I want to hear that has an interview. Like I'll Google an artist and find where they've done interviews on podcasts and I'll listen. But yeah, just don't do as much. And I've tried to get back into reading rather than listening and having.
Yeah, how are you with that book?
I finished it and I need to give it to you. I told you I was going to let you borrow it. The Brady versus Belichick.
I always read on my tablet, so I'll just download it. Not the big.
Okay, well, you can download it, but I've got the actual hardcover book. I started it the other day. Stephen King book, It. I'm on page 100.
My daughter, that
There's
is my
1,200
daughter's.
pages.
Wow. Yeah, that's true Stephen King. My daughter loves it.
I do too. I'm obsessed. And
Really?
I used to hate clowns, dude. I would hate clowns because I had a bad experience when I was a kid. And now for some reason, this shows, I'm like all about it. I watch the movie all the time. The series is interesting.
She watches all
So
the
yeah,
time. So like almost every other Halloween, she's been some character from it. She was for one of the 3 Halloweens that she took part of at ECU. She was some sort of it character or whatever. So
there
yeah,
you go. Maybe she's cooler than I thought. Anyway,
maybe.
all right, I'm getting out of here unless you got anything left. We've had
No,
roughly 50 people in here all day. You can't beat that on a Wednesday at lunchtime. Appreciate folks taking time out of their days to hang with Don Callahan and me. Sign up for Inside Carolina. Sign up for Johnny T-shirt or go to Johnny T-shirt and get your swag, and you get your 10% off if you're a premium subscriber. Don, it's always fun. I guess we'll circle back next week ahead of the Duke game in a couple
yeah,
weeks, where North Carolina will have some pretty impressive visitors to come in for the last home game. Everybody stay safe. Everybody be good, and we'll see you next week.